You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
And
Keith Cheatham.
That's right, guys. Lighting it up COVID green again.
Yeah.
Compassion.
Green.
Well, we got another reason to be all compassionate, too.
Do we?
The murder hornets are coming to America now. I
That's
mean,
going to be a different color. Different color.
Well,
You can't call them Asian because that's racist.
Well,
You can only
But
call them murder
why does
hornets.
all the bad things keep coming from Asia?
that is not a racist question.
I did-
just a fair question.
I did love all the
Okay.
memes, though. I
Yeah.
was like, welcome to the 5th level of Jumanji. Now murder hornets.
It is. It's insane that it's just like,
Like one thing after the
what,
other.
I mean, 2020 has really
Yeah.
turned into like.
I'm loving it. Everybody's like, 2020 is a terrible year. I was like, I'm enjoying
It's
it.
one of the
It's
funniest
comical.
years. Yeah.
I mean, what a way to kick off a decade. I mean, just with all the.
I mean,
crap.
yeah, to be
I mean,
fair,
it's
like I'm not
insane.
saying I'm enjoying the fact that Corona exists. That's terrible, but
Yeah.
Yes,
I
that's
will
what
say
you were
just
saying.
the irony of it all, the funny. I just find the humor in it.
Well,
have you watched the guy that like lets all the bugs and ants and stuff like bite him and sting him?
Oh, no.
He's like he's got his own like YouTube channel or show
Okay.
or whatever.
Oh,
But he
man.
like his name's like Coyote something. But he literally like puts them on his arm and like lets them sting it like.
Well, that's a nut job right there.
Dude, he finds bugs I didn't even know existed on
Coyote
this planet.
exotic.
But
You know?
yeah, but he does the murder hornet, man, and
Yeah.
I mean, he puts it on his forearm, and that
Is it
thing
just,
is like,
it pinch them?
oh no, it's like
it's huge.
it bites.
They're
and
2
then
inches
stings.
long.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Oh
like
my
2 inches
God.
Yeah,
long.
they're huge.
and it puts him down. Like
Really?
he's on
They
crawling
say
on the ground
if you
in
get
pain.
multiple stings, you could die from
Yeah.
it. Like the venom's so strong that like
Oh
I mean
my
you could survive like
gosh.
1 or 2 stings, but if a swarm of them, like when Sean got attacked by all them
Oh,
If
hornets,
they were
yeah.
murder hornets,
He
I
would've-
wouldn't be here
yeah,
No,
right
you
now.
would
dead.
be dead. Well, I mean, hey, look, no other movie to look at than My Girl. I mean, we know it's tragic. I'm just saying, you know,
Poor Macaulay Culkin. I swear.
one of the saddest moments in the movie. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh.
It was just super sad. At that.
Depressing.
But the thing is yeah, they apparently these things they eat them over there. They catch
Yeah.
them and eat them
They're
in
meat.
Japan.
Well, that's how
Yeah,
they
they
think.
have
That's how they
ones.
think they
So-
got over here. They think somebody brought them like
Right.
for a food source,
Yeah.
and now they're just.
You don't have
breeding.
proof of that.
I'm not. I'm
We
just
don't.
saying,
We don't have proof of that.
That's what they believe.
okay. We need
so
reports.
far, they're only in like Canada and Seattle and
Yeah, I was gonna say Washington,
or-
which
or
that's
Washington,
Seattle,
yeah.
so
Huh. Funny how it always
So-
starts on the coast.
yeah.
Just saying.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, just how do they get in anyway? That's all. That's all. I'm just asking.
Somebody brought them over.
I
man.
don't know. I'm not trying to.
They said, "You know
start
what?
Something.
We're tired of America. Release the murder hornets."
Yeah.
Maybe that'll help us get rid
Jeez.
of the COVID. Who knows? Maybe that.
What if that's the cure?
that would be
To be
insane.
stung by one of those and
Oh,
the COVID just
man.
it goes away.
I'm just saying.
I'm just gonna stick with the COVID.
no better.
That's what
No
I'm
better
saying.
way for Asia to redeem itself than to give us
have-
the cure.
I have like a phobia of those like when you get attacked by a swarm of anything like that,
I bet.
you don't want none
Yeah.
anymore. And that's like if I saw one, I would run.
I would too.
Like there's
I've
no
seen.
stepping, I would
I've
just
seen the
run.
little pinchers, and that scares me enough.
Oh yeah, they can bite too.
They
'cause
bite
they-
and
yeah.
hold on and then sting you.
Yes.
Oh my
So they get you more
That's
than
how,
once.
because they say they invade like honeybee hives and stuff, and they decapitate
They
them
eat
with
the
their mandibles.
honeybees.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they decapitate them with their mandibles and eat them.
That
yeah.
proves they're not racist. They'll kill their own kind. They don't care. Okay.
Well, they don't
I'm just
kill.
saying.
They
Well,
don't kill other hornets.
Yeah, they
Well,
kill the
no,
bees.
but I'm just saying
They
they're
said
all the
they're
same.
superior.
Yeah.
That's racist. Saying they're all the same.
All right. I know. I need to practice
Tolerance.
diversity
You know,
in bee
speaking of
culture.
exotic, though, I do have to know because me and Sean found the same article about.
Look, I don't think anybody is surprised by this.
I'm not surprised, but I'm
It's a good
terribly
pick.
excited
I think I'm more surprised by that. It actually is. It's going to happen.
that Nicolas Cage is going to play Joe
Joe
Exotic
Exotic.
in a
Oh,
scripted
gosh.
series. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to
I'm
it.
not happy about this.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's Nicolas Cage.
No, I don't care. I'm done with Joe Exotic.
I am-
I'm done with Tiger King.
I will never be done with anything Nicolas Cage. You know it's going to. It could be either the most amazing thing ever made or the worst thing ever made, but it's always going to be entertaining.
Yeah,
with
it's still
Nicolas
Nicolas Cage.
No, true. I'm not. I'm just thinking of Face Off. I don't know why.
Case in point. It may not be a good movie, but it's entertaining. Yeah, he does either great or terrible,
Right.
but it's always fun.
That's a badass movie.
Face Off.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get. I
It's
admit
just
it.
he's
It's like
he
Speed.
is himself.
It's
though.
like
He's nuts.
Speed. It's like it's
Somebody-
a great '90s flick.
Somebody knew what they were doing. You hired Nicolas Cage
Yeah,
and
yeah.
John Travolta
Yeah.
for an action movie.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, you can't go wrong.
They knew
mean-
what they were making.
I mean, you can't.
They
go
said
wrong.
this
Put
premise.
Scientology and Crazy together, and you
They
get
said
some.
this premise sounds ridiculous. We'll just get Nicolas Cage and
get
John Travolta to do it. Sold.
Saturday Night Con Air. I'm just telling you.
Con Air is a great movie too. I
He
love
has the
that
worst
movie.
accent ever.
I know, but it's still an awesome movie.
All right, guys. Well, fun and entertaining.
Yeah.
Just like every week here on the Red Moon Podcast.
Absolutely.
So obviously, we're going to kick things off with what we do every week. First out of the show, right out of the gate, is our review. But we got another one in
We
our
got a good
Oscar
one.
tales.
So
this one, we had a little bit of a divisive. We were
we
we were all across the board on that one. We all had our own varying opinions.
Mm-hmm.
The Broadway Melody we
yeah,
all agreed on, but it wasn't such a great Oscar pick.
even though we didn't
in our
have the
minds.
show last week, we did agree, and like I said, you can the review will be on the website.
It is on the
Is it
website now,
there?
yeah.
Okay, so you can see it, and we all agreed that it was not a particularly great film, but was instead probably got its honors for being like the first musical and some of the technical things. But now we come to a movie that is noteworthy amongst. Most people they recognize the name All Quiet on the Western Front. So that I think in and of itself, people know. So here's my review of All Quiet on the Western Front. By 1930, film had already evolved considerably from its humble beginnings. With clear narrative, enthralling drama, and heartfelt performances, film had already begun to change from an entertaining spectacle to a bona fide form of storytelling and human interaction. A medium through which themes, ideals, and emotion could be shared. No film of its time proved this more than 1930's All Quiet on the Western Front. Based on the world-renowned novel of the same name, which had only released a single year before the film, both the novel and the film were the first of their kind, showcasing the horrors of war as they really were. Banned in many countries, including its country of origin, Germany, All Quiet on the Western Front is the war story that would shape a generation. Likewise, the film would become the foundation for which all war films are measured. And before the likes of Saving Private Ryan, released 68 years after All Quiet, it was the most realistic depiction of war committed to screen. Directed by Louis Milestone, All Quiet on the Western Front may not depict the gore and carnage of war in the same stomach-churning realism of Saving Private Ryan, but for a film nearly 70 years younger, it holds up surprisingly well. No technology may not have been advanced enough to show the bullets ripping through bodies, but through Milestone's smart direction and captivating drama, the horrors of war are brought to life. Telling the story of a group of young German schoolboys who enlist during World War I and become the Army's second company, the movie follows Paul Baumer, played by Lou Ayres, one of these young troops as he and his friends live through the war on the front lines. Throughout the film, Paul watches as he loses his friends, one by one, to one horrible incident or another. As Paul himself endures the hardships of war, he becomes disillusioned with the whole thing and begins to ponder the point of it all. The film and story is a bleak one, but one that resonates with us even today. Made all the more potent are the film's themes, as multiple views and opinions on the subject are out on display through the use of the supporting cast. While performances are melodramatic at times, there are still heartfelt moments from Ayres himself and a fantastic comedic performance by actor Louis Wolheim playing comedic relief Stanislaus Kat Kaczynski, who too has a few over-the-top moments, though they actually add to much of the character's humor and charm. With brilliant dialogue from a screenplay adapted by Maxwell Anderson, George Abbott, and Dale Andrews, the biggest impact of the effect of war on those fighting comes from the philosophical conversation amongst the troops more than the bloodbath on screen. This doesn't mean that the physical horror of war is absent from the film, however. While incapable of showcasing the same bloodbath that modern films can, the effects of the time, alongside ingenuitive new techniques, still gave us a realistic showing of an unfathomable body count on the front lines and brutal trench warfare. Through use of cinematography, locations are made to look huge and open or tight and claustrophobic. All Quiet on the Western Front was the first film of its kind and showcases it in all of these technical achievements. It has its faults, many of which are products of its time, while others are much less easier to overlook. Despite this, it perfectly accomplishes what it sets out to do, creating a timeless classic that truly reflects universal views on war. I give All Quiet on the Western Front 4 out of 4 stars. Well, there you have it. That is
Yeah, 4 out
a
of 4
review of-
stars.
this is a movie that I've always loved. Well, not always, but since I've seen it.
Yeah.
Came out of the womb.
I
Loving
came out of
this
the womb
movie.
like,
Loving it.
all quiet on the Western Front.
You weren't all
Yeah.
quiet when you came out of
Nah.
the womb.
Yeah.
Don't even lie
But
about that.
it is definitely, like I said, it's a film that most people do know. I mean, they've heard of it, even if they don't know why it is as famous as it is. But it is like the first of its kind, the first serious depiction of war on film. And it has just, I mean, basically for film in and of itself, I mean, there's a lot of first. But it is the first like realistic approach that you've gotten, and it wouldn't be until Saving Private Ryan so many years later that you got another like serious gritty approach to a war film.
Well, and I know
on
they're-
the same scale.
Well, I was gonna say I know a lot of people would probably put in there.
There are other
Apocalypse Now.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, other war films that were a pinnacle of,
Well, even
of
a
cinema.
Patton.
Of cinema. Patton is a fantastic
Patton
one.
is a great one.
But I mean, I agree. I think this and something like Saving Private Ryan are war films that truly are timeless classics, and I think part of that is they capture the essence of not only humanity and human nature, but they really, I mean, for one, just to think interestingly enough that this film, while it is all English spoken, it takes on the perspective from the German, rivals that we were against, that we opposed in World War I. So I think that in and of itself just showcased.
That's what makes it so relatable and human to me, is that you actually you see so much German. The Germans are always painted as the evil villains in most war movies,
Right.
And I mean, there is a reason for that, but this is the first time where you see.
Yeah, they are.
Exactly.
They are.
But they are. They were. I mean, definitely the Nazis. But the thing is, the soldiers, the guy on the ground, like the little peons, they were just doing what they were fighting.
They were doing what they were told most of the time.
Like there's even a perfect scene in this movie where they discuss is like, why are we here? Why are we fighting? Somebody must have wanted this war.
Yeah.
I didn't want it, but somebody had to want it.
Right,
And I love that scene in this movie.
And exactly.
It shows
to know that we've seen that in war films.
Yeah.
But this was the first.
Yeah.
You know, this was, I mean, we saw Wings. We reviewed that a few weeks ago. And that one even taking on, you know, the tale of war that it told in a serious way. And yet, there was even some shots that were used in that film that were also used in this one, especially during the battle scenes. But yet, again, to deepen that story of the soldier on the ground, the boots that were on the ground. And I think
it truly is it has very universal themes.
Yes.
It's like no matter if you fought for America, Britain, France, Russia, Germany, they all experienced the same horrors and went through the same ordeals.
Right. We're just used to seeing the American or British side of things. We're not really used to seeing the German side.
well,
so
and
that's unique.
I think
Well,
the
to make
only
your
other-
enemy sympathetic in a way.
Yeah.
And it's not to say, because obviously, definitely, especially during World War II, Hitler and those in charge were definitely evil. But a lot, like we said, a lot of the soldiers underneath that were just, and I mean, that not giving them the excuse, but I mean, they were doing what they were told.
Well, and one thing in particular, talking about even World War II, I remember watching Band of Brothers,
Yeah.
the
Yes.
miniseries, a fantastic miniseries. And there was one scene when it's in the dead of winter and it's Christmas, and they're all in these foxholes covered in snow to try to keep warm underneath the snow. And there's a scene where they hear Silent Night being sung by the Germans in German, and there's a ceasefire. And I mean, there was nobody
War Horse.
firing anyway. Oh gosh, don't to see All Quiet on the Western Front and then watch War Horse.
Pathetic.
Pathetic. War Horse is pathetic.
Yeah.
But it's just when I saw that scene in Band of Brothers, when I watched this, it reminded me of that scene, which this obviously came well before Band of Brothers. But it just, again, it's capturing that essence of humanity that is within the individual on the front line.
Right.
And I really absolutely think this is a timeless classic in that regard.
What was your star rating?
Mine was 3.5.
Okay.
Part of the reason for that was particularly because of the dialogue choices. Again, I don't want to knock it too much. I know that
Hit or miss, because some of the dialogue blew me away.
Yeah,
and
some of the
others-
dialogue was fantastic.
But some of the rest, I agree, was very bad.
To me, there were certain scenes that, in particular, like for instance, there's a scene towards the end when the main character that you follow all the way throughout is on leave and he goes home, you know, and he's talking amongst a group of guys, and it's kind of these older men who know better than he does, and the scene had already conveyed that. But then one of the older gentlemen, you know, very directly in his dialogue is just like, see, you're a man on the front lines. You do your job fighting the war, but we know strategy. And the way in which he spoke the line, I was just kind of like, okay, the scene was already playing out that way. I didn't need an absolute confirmation of that direct kind of
Yeah.
dialogue. And again, this is the third Best Picture winner. Talkies are still
Yeah.
very new.
Yeah.
So I don't want to give it too much guff for that, but that was just some of the dialogue choices were the reason why I kind of knocked it off that half-star mark.
Okay.
Sean, what about you?
I gave it 3 stars, and the only reasons for that were nothing on technical issues, nothing like it. It was a fantastic, epic film. The only issues that I had were very related to yours, the dialogue, but not so much just what they were saying, but there was a couple of moments that the acting I thought was just like extremely overly dramatic.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree
The
with
one that I'm really that's sticking out in my mind was, and I can't remember the guy's name that was in the hospital.
Yes.
But the main character or whatever is like he kneels down and he's just like, "Oh God, please don't take so and so." Like
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
like one of the worst prayers I've ever heard. And then
I think he even
Yeah.
names himself at the
Yeah.
beginning of the prayer.
Yeah,
This is
it's-
so and so.
This is so and so.
Yeah.
And it was just that was really terrible. And then shortly after that, he comes back to his battalion or whatever, and they're kind of in a little dugout or something. They're in there talking, and he comes back to let them know that that their buddy died, and they're sitting there talking, and he gives this dialogue or whatever monologue where he's talking, and it's just like. The acting was so terrible to me. He kept looking like he was going to throw up while he was delivering the lines, and it didn't seem to me like that's part of the film. It just seemed like you're just a terrible actor right now.
Right.
That really bothered me, and it was only just really that those 2 scenes were back to back, and I had an issue with that. But then there was another moment with the it was almost like the movie had this huge plot, had the huge storyline, but then within it were short stories.
Yeah.
And the short stories, some of them kind of bothered me, and one of them was the boots thing. You talk about the boots on the ground.
I really
And
liked that.
I liked it, but
I
I
was
didn't
gonna say, I didn't
think
mind
it.
it.
I just didn't think it fit with the rest of the film. It was like we're going from this war film, and then we're going to take a detour and just and let you for about a minute and a half follow along with these boots being worn by all these different people, and they die and the boots get picked up and given to somebody else or whatever, and then it's back to the main story again. I understood why they put it there. I didn't dislike that little short side thing, but I didn't feel like it fit with the rest of the film.
Okay.
But then again, the beginning and the end of the movie in the classroom are fantastic.
Yes.
And if you want to talk about good dialogue, when the movie opens and you're in this classroom and the teacher is spatting out his propaganda and basically basically making these young men feel like trash if they don't serve the fatherland.
Yes.
And then they all enlist immediately, and then later to have Lou Ayres' character come back, Paul, and the teacher is still there, and he's asking him, tell these young men, and they're even younger than he was, and he's like, tell them that why they should go fight, and he's just like, you go, you might live, you might die, and that's for day to day. That's it. He doesn't really give the hoorah speech that the teacher was given.
Well, and actually, honestly, great. I'm glad you brought that up because that is one scene I completely agree. At the very beginning and the end, to me that's one thing this film also did well was the editing.
Yes.
And in terms of even at the beginning when he's giving the propaganda speech and it's cutting to all these faces and the guy's talking about
showing their dreams.
And the daydreams.
Shows their
daydreams. And I just loved for something for this film to kind of take that ability of artistically showcase what it is. I mean, again,
daydreaming.
It was a beautiful way of showing how impactful filmmaking can be.
Yeah. Well, that particular scene was really smart in the way that he shows 3 people's faces.
Yeah.
And they show 2 of them daydreaming, and then the third guy, it just shows his face, like his reaction to his daydream. But it doesn't show you the little daydream. And because I'm thinking after 2 or 3 of these, it's getting kind of old.
Yeah.
So on the third one, they pulled back from the daydream and just show his reaction to it. And I loved that because based on his reaction, you can see that it was something pleasant or delightful that he wanted to happen.
Yeah.
And I loved that part of that filmmaking, that it was just, don't beat a dead horse or tire us out on this same little idea. Throw in something something
Well,
a little bit different,
it
and I
adds
liked
It's
that.
that creative way of adding.
Yes, you're imagining
your own,
what he's daydreaming.
It does
Yeah.
what novels do,
Yep.
and what they do best in the written word, and letting your imagination run wild. And even in that, he's
But in
allowing
film,
you
he actually
Yeah.
was
to
able
do it,
to show
to
and
convey
not
it.
tell.
There was also another scene too when they were in the trenches that I loved the editing, and it showed frames of black in between. There was, I think it was the first time that they were on the front line, and they're going through, and each after all of them had fought, it was showing them hunkered down in the trenches, and it literally all you hear, and this was one of the pieces of trivia that we throw on for our Great Day Live segment, but there is no score and no music at all in the film, just all the war sounds while they're in the trenches, and you hear bombs and things going off, and then it just shows their faces, each of them, these characters you've seen. Their young faces come in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, like, I'm going to war, I'm ready to get my gun. And you see how kind of juvenile and childish their thinking is going into war, and now that they're in the midst of it and how ugly it is, and you see them just scared, being in the midst of this chaos.
Yeah.
And so when it shows like their face and then it cuts to black and then it shows the next one, it was just a very, again, a beautiful way of telling and describing that emotion in the way it was edited.
Yeah.
And bar none, this is absolutely a film that stands the test of time.
The cinematography and the editing were the two things about this film that impressed me, I think, the most. I mean, I love Citizen Kane and Orson Welles. He gets a lot of credit for the shots from the floor for making rooms look larger, and because he even invented like hollow floors where he could like sit down in the floor with the camera. But this film, like, even though like he's credited for doing that, this film has a lot of those shots from the floor that really surprised me, because I was like, man, because I know Citizen Kane got tons of praise for that being such a new and inventive shot.
Yeah.
But here, this movie, and it's not a lot. There's only like 2 or 3 of them. But this movie had shots like that back then, and I mean, it wasn't credited for it in the same way that Citizen Kane was.
Well, and I think one last thing I'll say about the film is I think it just is a testament to us revisiting these old classics. One thing I like is for us to not only enjoy film history, but it truly does harken back to days when they were just discovering these tricks out and trying to find new ways to think outside the box and use this new medium that they were all fascinated with and everybody was fascinated with. But in particular, it just proves to you that as much as we talk about new and current films being great and timeless and fantastic, it just shows you how much of the material is from a time in the past. And how we stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
And it's like all of the tropes and all of the things that we've come to know come from these films that we are now watching and garnering as, again, the herald classics that they are. And I think that is one thing I'm enjoying about revisiting these movies. And of course you have your Broadway melodies that are not, particularly great. And you can tell, what I think was maybe a piece that stood out because it had sound in it and they were fascinated with sound, and I think we're going to see that with some of the most recent Best Picture winners that we've had, such as
well, I think
Birdman and Moonlight.
It is interesting, like as
they're not going to stand the test of time.
As time goes on, I think there's definitely ones that people look back and remember and say, oh yeah, that definitely deserved it. But then there's ones where you're like, well, maybe that was just caught up in the emotion of the time.
Sometimes those technicalities and some of the things that went into the filmmaking, not necessarily the acting performances or even the story itself, those things are overlooked by some technical thing or new system that they've come out with for making these movies. Like Boyhood, everybody thought Boyhood was gonna clean house because it was filmed over 12 or whatever years, and it didn't. But then again, Birdman was a great movie, but one of the things everybody was so obsessed with was the fact that it was all like made to look like one shot.
Like
Same thing with
1917.
1917 I think did it better.
Yes,
agreed.
But again, that alone was not enough to carry the movie. It had to have everything else.
Yes.
And I think you're right, though. We're going to see some other films that may have been this new like technical leap in filmmaking that just still didn't deserve
or
it
even
for
just
story
had
and
the
performance.
social messages they wanted to push at the time. And I think in the future, when people look back, they're like, "Well, that movie really wasn't that good. It just
Right.
Yeah.
it just spoke on
That's
the
true.
events that were
Yeah.
happening back then."
And exactly. And so and we're gonna time will tell.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
as we're going back and revisiting these,
Time always does.
we're going to be able to find out whether there are other, Best Picture winners from the past that truly deserve that title. But no doubt about it, All Quiet on the Western Front absolutely deserves that
So
title.
next week will be the 4th Academy Award
Yeah,
winner,
go ahead
which
and tell
is
us about that one.
Cimarron. It's a Western. It is the first Western to win an Oscar and one of the or Best Picture Oscar and one of the only Westerns to do so. I mean, others have been nominated. But yeah, it like I said, the story is noted because it spans the scope of 40 years. It's a large, epic Western. I believe it's also another longer film. So a lot of the ones we've done so far have been 2 hours plus. And other than that, I don't know much more about it. I just was curious about what it was about. But during its time, it was considered, an epic and this amazing movie that kind of blew people's minds. At least average audiences. Now, critically, I'm not sure. We'll definitely find out when we watch it and see how we feel, whether if it truly is a good movie or if it was just because it was such a large-scale production that people were just mesmerized. So we'll see.
We'll see. But for right now, I guess it's time to move on to our headlines this week. We got a lot of catching up to do, okay?
Yeah.
Because actually, thankfully, the news cycle kind of paused a little bit through this last
We
week.
had some major news happen last week, but we
right,
missed
yeah.
it. But luckily, it's still the major news in the industry.
There's nothing else bigger right now than, of course, the war that is waging between theaters and studios.
And this is something that we kind of foresaw. We talked about it, how it could be a possibility in the future that studios may decide to start releasing direct video on demand.
I do. I think it's so funny when headlines come up and I'm like, hey, we've discussed that before.
Yeah.
We ain't
touched on
dumb. Yeah.
We know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so what are your all's thoughts right now on the fact that what ended up happening
Well, it's
was
entertaining for one.
Yeah,
of course
It
it
almost
is.
it almost makes me wonder if it's intentional just to draw attention
Drum
to
up.
the theaters.
Again, it goes back to the whole thing. There is no such thing as bad publicity.
That's
right,
right. Yeah.
I mean, it is out in the public, and this is what's getting people's attention and stirring a lot of controversy for theater owners and studios alike.
Yeah.
But the fact is Universal came out touting the fact that Trolls World Tour had done a great job in terms of releasing only on streaming, and yet they had planned, or they looked forward to having more launches on streaming and in theaters, to which AMC shot first. After, I mean, I guess you could say Universal shot
kind of
first.
shot first, but AMC responded.
They actually said that
viciously.
Trolls World Tour did better streaming than the original movie did in its entire theater run.
Wow.
So
But
that's
I mean,
a big deal,
but yeah,
though.
it is
That
a big
is
deal.
huge.
Well, they said
deal.
like it wasn't just that like they made their budget back. They admitted like they grossed quite a bit off the digital.
That's
but you
what it's
also
all about.
But you have to think a lot of cooped up kids, parents want to entertain them.
Yeah,
I
at
can-
$20 a pop.
$20 a pop.
Yeah.
I could
Well,
see
of
that.
course.
Yeah.
But again, if that's the name of the game, then there's probably a lot of other movies in the pipeline that are going to offer that same
It definitely
kind of
is going to give
satisfaction.
studios. Well, Warner Brothers have already announced that they're going to release Scoob digitally, and that which will be interesting because if they do, is AMC going to ban all Warner Brother movies as well?
Well, and that's the big news. The big news was AMC shot back and said we're not showing any Universal.
They banned all Universal.
banned
films.
all Universal films from releasing in their theaters. Cinemark then jumped on the bandwagon and said as long as a movie releases on streaming, they're not going to show that movie
They didn't
in their
outright
theater.
No.
ban.
It wasn't Cinemark. It was Royal.
Oh, I'm sorry. Royal.
Yeah,
Royal
Cinemark's
Cinemas.
there.
Yeah,
Yes,
Cinemark hasn't.
Regal.
Regal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
sorry, not
Um,
Royal.
yeah.
Regal.
Royale.
We
with
don't even know about
cheese.
them. That's like up in Indiana
Yeah,
for us.
AMC's the largest chain, and
Yeah.
Regal's the second
Yeah.
largest. Cinemark's the third. They haven't weighed
They
in
haven't
on this
weighed-
yet.
yeah.
But yeah, Regal said they're not banning outright just Universal, but they said any production company that releases a film to video on demand instead of
First
in the
in
theatrical
theaters.
window, like any studio that skips the theatrical window, we're not going to show in our theaters.
Yeah.
And
Now, AMC said because Universal skipped the theatrical window, they won't show any Universal
Well,
film.
and I think they're doing. Here's the thing: does AMC really have the luxury of doing that when they're in the position they're in with the
Time will tell.
Yeah.
Well,
but
yeah,
then again, they were also the ones that were very vocal about MoviePass. They were right. We knew they were right.
Yeah.
I think everybody did. But they called it right, and they were able to come out with Stubbs A-List and offer us, and I would consider a better deal.
Oh,
because
yeah.
it actually works. But the fact is they have been very stingy but very direct about the way they're approaching these certain issues.
Actually, just a day ago, Universal already announced their next digital movie. Yesterday, the High Note, they said will be released directly digital. So they've already, Universal's like they're not caring. Yeah, they already announced. Here's our next digital film.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not for, I guess, supporting completely big businesses because I think a lot of times they don't have even our consumer interest in mind. But I will say this about the theaters, and I understand because the National Association of Theater Owners, a different kind of NATO, came out and basically they have an agreement with the studios that movies will have a release in theaters theatrically, nationwide.
It's a 90-day window.
And they will have it for at least 90 days.
Yeah.
And so with that being the case, I think it is kind of odd that you already have this agreement set forth with your theatrical partners.
Right.
And then this kind of seems like a backstab.
Yeah.
Even though Universal's not
that's
playing
what
it
NATO
that way,
has
and they
kind
didn't
of-
even intend for it to be taken that way.
Yeah.
But
they're
of course it
siding
was.
with
It was a
AMC.
shot fired. Yeah.
Well, NATO, the National Association of Theater Owners,
Not the other NATO.
not the other NATO. We had that conversation too.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're saying, to go back to the theatrical window, that came about just because theaters were already threatened. The digital age had already came with Netflix, and theaters were already feeling the squeeze. And they lobbied and they sat down with production companies and they came up with that agreement, the theatrical window, that films would have to show in theaters for 90 days. And that was specifically made to keep theaters from going out of business.
Yeah.
But as time marches on and digital becomes the common, it's no longer like, back when Netflix launched, it was awesome, but no,
again,
you still
I don't think
didn't
they
have
saw
that
it as
mainstream.
much of a threat, but I also think that in a sense, Universal, again, I think the way in which they responded to the success of Trolls World Tour was not necessarily a shot at theaters from their perspective. In their mind, what they're thinking is, we're gonna tout the success of our film being launched on streaming, and we're looking forward to having many more successes, but we're also still looking forward to releasing theatrically. And that's where AMC said, no, wait a second.
In Universal's original statement, they didn't really say that we're looking forward to continuing with theaters. They made it sound like we're gonna jump the theater ship and just go all digital.
Digital.
They said,
Then after AMC fired back, that's when they come out and said, no, we still want to do certain films theatrically.
They said they would release it theatrically and on demand at the same time.
Right.
They didn't say they were going to skip
but that's
theatrical
still
altogether.
going to pull away from theaters.
theaters. Yeah,
absolutely. And no doubt, Universal is trying to look at the best way, just like theaters
To make
are,
money.
to make money.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but in Universal's defense, I understand their reasoning behind saying if this is a better avenue for us to go straight direct to the consumer, and we know it's going to be a success, but then there's other movies.
Why would you not do it?
Yeah, why would you not do it? And then there's going to be other movies where they probably know they're going to see their bigger ticket sales.
Movies like
with releases.
Fast and the Furious and Jurassic
Exactly.
World, both of those, because here's the thing, those are going to be major blockbusters.
Yep.
I'm sure Universal wants those to be in theaters, and it's funny because it's like, are you saying AMC doesn't want to have something as huge as Fast and the Furious or the Jurassic Park series in their theaters? Because that's a lot of money they're going to miss out on.
They're hoping that Universal will walk some of this back.
And I don't think they're going to. The head of NBC Universal, even he himself said, digital releases are inevitable. He said, it's the way of the future.
Way of the future.
Way of the future.
Way of the future.
But and he's not entirely wrong. I mean, we've already look at every company now is trying to get into streaming. HBO Max comes out this month. NBC Universal has their own with the Peacock coming.
Which NBC's in trouble apparently too. They've just everybody is with COVID, but they've also just recently cut some people. But continue, sorry.
No, and they're just saying obviously what people thought might be a niche is the common mainstream medium now is streaming. So it makes sense that production companies are going to look to, well, if we can cut out the middleman and just release directly into homes and garner all the profit.
I think what's really at hand here and what's going to be the real teller of what's going to happen down the road is AMC, of course, is not going to show Universal films. If that doesn't hurt Universal's bottom line, the only person's bottom line that hurts is AMC.
Right.
And so if that ends up hurting them to a degree to where they can't recover or people can't, they don't have other films that are drawing in people to their, put butts in the seats.
Yeah.
Then ultimately AMC's the one that's really going to be struggling if they don't bring that crowd. If they even have a chance to increase their profitability by 1 or 2% at a theater because they're carrying a Universal film, then AMC's going to eat their own words and they're going to cave eventually.
I need to see more films released straight to digital that do better than in theaters.
Well, I want to see it when
because
theaters open back up.
I still think that, and I'm with AMC, I still think Trolls did so good because you have a lot of cooped up families
Agreed.
that are sitting at home with nothing to keep their kids
Yeah,
occupied. So they're
absolutely.
willing to, I'm not willing to spend $20 to rent a movie.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying?
Same
$20 better be mine forever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's it. That's
I better be
the,
buying the movie with
That's
it.
the reason that
Yeah.
we get screeners from, the studios.
The bigwigs.
To watch, and that's how I watch it with my kids. I didn't pay for it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I understand what it's like being at home with kids that have nothing to do. And yes, Trolls World Tour, unfortunately, has been a godsend because my kids watch it 3 times a day.
Gosh.
And
Can you
it's-
imagine,
it's
like, if you had to
pathetic.
pay $20
You
every time
imagine
they watch
exactly.
Every time
You get
they
it for
watched it.
get it for 48 hours for $20 if you're renting it, and it's just like
how many
that's not
people
enough.
paid
But
that
once
$20 more
once
than
the
once?
COVID stuff is over and everything starts to return back to normal, I don't see a movie like that making that much bank on demand.
I don't know.
I just don't.
And that's where time will tell.
It's hard
because
to tell, yeah.
truth be told, I do think I don't see it being that big a deal with major releases that adults want to go out and see. When it's staying at home with your children, when it's talking about a film that is geared towards your animated releases.
Oh yes.
I definitely think
I can see select movies like Scoob. I think probably will
I do.
do
That
well
would be a
on
good
home
one to-
demand.
to
Yeah.
exactly,
digital,
and I
yeah.
think
Because
I
that's
think
not
your
what I want to go to the
animated
theater to see
features-
anyway.
Yeah, well, but again, I think it's going to be
Yeah.
your animated family films that truly do end up becoming a bigger hit streaming wise
Yep.
than they do theatrically.
Yeah.
And I understand why Universal's pushing that. The real question is with the fire and the trading back and forth, it is going to be an interesting, it's going to be an interesting test because another big development, in fact, was the fact that the Oscars even came out with news, and they are changing the entry guidelines this year.
Well, and they almost
Just
have
this
to.
year, not for the years to come.
Right.
But it is going to include movies that were released on streaming, or it can be. They're eligible for an Oscar. However, they will have had plans to release theatrically.
They're only eligible if they couldn't release theatrically thanks to what's going on with COVID.
Right.
Now, and then here's the gray area, because we discussed this. You said, what happens in the future when Universal releases a movie to theater and on demand? Is it still eligible? And because the Academy really hasn't said, they've only said that
they
you had
have.
to,
They have in terms of in normal years. The rule is that you still have to release theatrically
Right.
in the 2 major cities,
Yes.
L.A. and New York, or even in L.A. I think it's just
Yeah.
one city. It has to release in L.A. and it has to be there for at least a week.
yeah,
And if
before
it's
it goes.
out, and then it can go to streaming, but it can still be eligible for Oscars.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier. But the thing is, like you said, does that mean if Universal releases, if they don't do that 1 week in LA, if they release a movie simultaneously,
Yeah.
does that make it no longer eligible?
I think under their rules right now. My question is because of this rule being only available this year because of the COVID pandemic, the real question to me is, well, what happens when theaters open back up? And then because this rule is vague enough to where Universal could still potentially release a late in year movie
Yeah, that's what
on streaming.
Maybe I didn't accept, but that's what I was
okay,
going
you're
for.
talking
Yeah.
about just this year.
Yeah, I'm talking about just this year.
Okay,
I'm
yes.
talking about, if theaters open back up and Universal releases, whatever this next movie I just mentioned, I already
Scoob.
forgot it.
Scoob.
Not Scoob, that's Warner Brothers.
Oh, yeah. I forgot the name of the other
Yeah.
one.
Sorry,
it's
I
not
don't
that.
remember it
It's
either.
really not that. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't want to see it anyway. But if they release that film and theaters already open back up, it's not an Oscar-worthy film anyway. But would it not be eligible? Because I would think not. But their wording and what they're saying is vague. So it's
Yeah.
like
I think they're kind of opening a window,
Yeah.
and I'd be anxious to see if they're actually going to not do this again next year. I can see them having a couple of these digital releases that maybe are Oscar worthy, and it's going to become the new normal.
Well, I think
And
the big
that's
thing with
why
the
I'm
Oscars,
afraid of this.
I think the Academy, what they're going to have to do, and it's just, again, it doesn't matter how popular it is, if they keep getting pushed for it, then they'll have to come up with some kind of response. But what they could easily say is, well, yeah, that was just last year because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
However, regardless, if they do invite streaming or movies that are just on streaming services, they're going to have to be very deliberate about what streaming platforms they allow. because who's to say that an amateur filmmaker can't release something on YouTube?
Yeah.
And just because they aren't some big, huge studio, it's still a streaming movie.
Yep.
But those obviously are put online a dime a dozen.
That's when that Neil, whatever his name
Neil
is.
Breen.
Neil Breen's going to be an
Neil Breen's
Oscar
gonna
winner.
walk away.
But to be
with his
fair,
Oscars.
he could put that on YouTube anytime he wants, and it's never going to be even
Well,
even if there
well,
wasn't a stipulation.
No, but the point is the Oscars and the Academy want to maintain some kind of notoriety
Yes. Yeah.
for being, revered.
Yes.
And I understand that, but the times do change. Technology does change the way in which we view films, and that has been the biggest question since the runaway hit that Netflix is, and the fact that now all of these major motion picture studios are getting into the streaming business. And so with the Academy in particular, they are, I think, with the first wave of this pandemic, having to figure out how they're going to approach this. They're just picking out this year and trying to come up with ways around it. But don't think that they're not sitting there in the back, in their spinning their wheels trying to figure out how are we going to approach this in years to come when this becomes a bigger threat.
Yep.
And I think the theater owners are thinking the same thing. AMC, I agree with them. I think they're making the right call for their business. But again, it's a risk, and that's what business is all about.
Yeah.
And if it ends up being that at the end of the day, nobody goes to the theater to see a movie, they'd rather sit in the comfort of their own home and rent it, and that helps the studios, well, then the Oscars are going to have to come up with a real good reason as to why, companies should not put their films on streaming
They'll have to
services.
change.
They'll have to
the
change
rules.
their rules.
They'll have to say, well, now they are allowed to be nominated.
I mean, apparently the rules don't really matter anyway. If Universal is willing to say, well, we're going to completely negate that 90-day window that we've already agreed to, I think that's what the NATO group is definitely like saying towards Universal. I mean, they've said in this article, it's they're saying that Universal's kind of reckless with some of their things. They've met prematurely and they announce things prematurely. They don't consult with their exhibitor partners like the theaters. And if you've got an association or a group as big as NATO that's in defense of all these theater owners, and they're saying Universal's been doing this for a long time. This is just who they are.
They've always been
they've already been.
So
and again, though, you're looking at theaters versus the production, because obviously NATO, they are the theaters, so that's what they're there to represent, the theaters.
Yeah.
Whereas the production companies,
they want to represent themselves.
Yes, the NATO doesn't represent the production companies at all. Really, they're meant to for the. And the thing is, the production companies, they're more for the
NATO
profit.
needs the
They're
production companies.
Yes, they need the production companies, but the production companies are for their bottom line. They're for a profit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Universal might want to win an Oscar, but when it comes to movies like Jurassic World or Fast and the Furious, those are never going to be nominated anyway.
Those are the
So
blockbusters
just
that are
wanna
there
make
to
money.
support and fund the Oscar
So
winners.
Universal,
and then the Oscar winner is just simply used as a marketing
for
ploy to say,
notoriety.
look how great we
Yeah.
are.
But that's my
it's like-
point, is that when it comes down to it, Universal doesn't care about the Oscar rules because they want that profit. And if it's not a movie that they know is going to be an Oscar-worthy movie anyways, why do they care if it can be eligible? I mean, who cares if Fast and the Furious is eligible for an Oscar? What they care about is it's making them money.
Yes.
Now, later on down the road, if Universal makes some movie that they know needs to be an Oscar contender, their minds might change about the digital distribution.
And again, yes, it ends up just coming down to it being a business, and the studios are in it for one reason, just like the theater owners are in it for a reason. It's all to make money. But at the end of the day, the Academy has this they have a tendency to try to go against the norm to maintain relevancy, but also to maintain their status quo of being revered. Yet at the same time, they've been probably the biggest and hardest hit in terms of their relevance because of the fact that they're unwilling
and there
to change.
are people in Hollywood that are cinemaphiles. I mean, you look at Christopher Nolan. You have people just like that, because he's been an advocate not just for
we're
theaters.
good. That's what we're going to talk about now.
He advocates theaters, but he also for film itself. He prefers like actual film over digital.
Yeah.
And you do have people like that will fight tooth and nail for the theater experience because they love that experience. And there are those in Hollywood that would side with the theaters.
Well, and right now he's pushing his next film, which we all have been looking forward to. But Tenet is set to come out in July, and he's been one of the main pushes. Even he's pushing the studio to try to still release it theatrically. He doesn't want to push it back. He wants it to be one of the films that come out and reinvigorates people to get back out into the theater.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he loves
And he wants it
theatrical
IMAX.
releases.
Yeah.
Because IMAX is something
he-
you can't get at home.
He
Yes,
loves
exactly.
IMAX.
Yeah.
He
Absolutely.
thinks when it came down to 3D and the IMAX for a while there, he was always the one to
Oh,
push.
we talked about
IMAX.
it, and I agree. We've all agreed with him.
Oh, yeah,
it's
definitely.
way more immersive than than 3D ever was. But the thing is, and the question is, even though he's fighting this fight, is Tenet the worthy movie to bring people back to the theaters? Will that be a big enough release?
I would
to
go
get
back for
people?
Tenet, but I don't know about.
I would, but
average.
the average film goer, I just don't. His movies are intellectually deep. There's
dense.
usually they're very dense films. You're right, and I don't see that. It's just like, God, what was the man? Now I'm
Not
like,
Interstellar.
not Interstellar. The
Dunkirk.
no, the one with the dreams.
Inception?
Inception.
Oh,
Yeah.
Inception.
I mean, you've got to. I still don't fully understand Inception.
But, no,
I'm just
but
saying.
here's the thing.
But that's a movie that like I would love to go see. I did not see that in theaters.
Well,
I
but-
would have loved to have seen
man,
that
yeah, it
in
was
IMAX.
Oh yeah, it was
I
fantastic.
mean, I can't
Yeah.
imagine it in IMAX.
But here's the thing: all of those films, every single one of them,
Yeah.
were blockbusters.
Oh yeah.
Huge
Yeah.
hits.
Yeah.
Dunkirk even. And
Yeah.
it was probably the lowest, I think, of the ones, the last ones that I've seen
Oh yeah.
that I appreciate.
I mean, the
Yeah.
Dark Knight trilogy was insane.
Fantastic.
Like, yeah.
And that honestly is, I would beg
Well,
to say that
I would
that's really his claim to
I'd
fame.
say the
Yeah.
Dark Knight trilogy is why all
What
of his
set
films
him-
went on
Yeah.
to become blockbusters because
Right.
that precedent, people were like, well, we want to see what else he makes. And then because he made Inception, then Interstellar and Dunkirk, people were
And
like,
because
well,
I think Inception was a psychological thriller, but I also think because it was dense. Again, what I love about him is that he doesn't treat the viewer as stupid.
yes.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people, you
He
again,
makes you feel stupid. I walk over for some of these films
it's
and
like,
I'm just
damn,
like,
he's just.
I don't.
What in
I
the
mean, I
world?
love his movie. Like, that's what I,
I
love
love
about
him,
it is the
but-
fact that he doesn't like he does.
I like the
It
fact that
annoys me when when they try to explain
when
too
they water
much.
it down.
Yes.
To me, I've seen way too many films that are watered down to the extent that they want to spoon feed you the narrative to where it's like they don't expect you to get the twist that they're creating,
Yeah.
so they have to feed it to you as if you're a child. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, then you're not doing a good enough job as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And granted, I understand that, for the majority, no, I don't want to sit there and watch an Inception-like movie every single time. Sometimes that's why I love the Fast and Furious films.
Right.
I like a
It's just
mindless
dumb
action.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think he has a kind of weight. And I think his movies do have a certain kind of pull of popularity to maybe be that big movie that opens theaters back up to get butts back in the seat. Because let's face it, we've already talked about how if the theaters open up with, it'd have to be some great movies that were classics of old.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be really hard for theaters to come out and then have no offering to give people right away. And if that's the case, well, then we're going to be sitting with another zero box office for several months to come, even after the pandemic is over.
Right.
So if the theaters open back up and they don't really have a whole lot to offer, I think Nolan is saying, no, I love the theater so much, and I want people to still enjoy that theater-going experience. And I want my movie to at least spearhead that effort,
Yeah.
put my money where my mouth is, and take a chance, take a risk, and see if this is something.
Because when theaters come back, we're going to be limited. I mean,
Yes.
one of the articles we have on our headlines is about Texas theaters requiring health checks.
Yeah.
You're going to have things like that. You're going to have them seating people 2 or 3 seats apart. You're going to have, so they're going to be at 50% occupancy probably. So when they first come out, he's willing to put his movie in a theater that's not going to make as much money
Yeah.
for him as it would have if it would
Well,
release
that's
with a full crowd.
Also, why he's
And I
having to
think
fight the
that's-
production company
Right,
on it.
but
because
that's an amazing thing from a filmmaker. That's he's willing to say, I'm even willing to maybe only break even just to get people to come back to theaters
you
and have
never know.
something to see.
He could be. I mean, I think what he's hoping for is, I think he's willing to take that risk, and then
Yeah.
the studio is sitting there thinking,
We're
not
not
with our
willing."
money.
Yeah, yeah.
But also, I think on the other end, it is kind of like because things the theaters may be at 50% capacity, it also could be a reason more people come back. If you don't get it in the first wave, weekend,
Yeah.
well, maybe you'll come back the second weekend and you'll be able to get in and
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
it. And so I think he's hoping that it'll draw enough momentum for people to go to the theater. And who knows, maybe it'll have a longer than traditional theatrical run because
that
of
could
it
be
being
possible, yeah.
low capacity.
Yeah.
But I ultimately do think that at the end of the day, it is a risk. But I do think Tenet is a big enough film. I think it is a big enough film to draw people back to the theater. I think we need a landmark film.
You definitely, I agree. You definitely have to have something major. I mean, look at Universal's next digital distribution. We can't even remember the name like 5 minutes after we're talking. It's like that movie wasn't going to draw people back to the theaters.
No.
Tenet would. A Marvel film would.
Well, Fast
and the Furious would, yes. But, without something that huge, people are going to be slow to go back to the theater because they're going to be nervous about it.
I mean, you think how much? I wonder how much the last Fast and Furious movie cost. A couple $100 million, $220 million, something. I would imagine that's about fair.
Yeah.
But I mean, you think about spending that much money on a movie and taking the risk of, we'll just do it direct to digital when people aren't stuck at home with the COVID.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Well, and I think
it will be in theaters.
No, absolutely.
Oh yeah,
it'll no doubt be in theaters. I think what Universal's weighing is,
can we release it in theaters
and streaming
and still
get a double batch? And because no doubt, if you cast out a net that's bigger, you're going to get more fish.
That's true.
And I think in their mind, they're thinking, well, no, we still want theaters, but we want the digital front too.
They want to have their
theater
cake
owners,
and eat it too.
Yeah.
Yes, and the theater owners are saying, no, that's BS, and that's not the deal you signed up for.
They're hoping that theater lovers will still go to the theater and watch Fast and the Furious, but those who are more likely to wait till it comes out on video will actually rent it for that $20.
And in Universal's mind, they're thinking win-win. We put it in theaters, it makes a ton
now
of
whether
money.
it works
we put
out
it on
that
streaming,
way,
and it makes a ton of money.
Yeah.
I mean, even if they cut it from 3 months to just 3 weeks, that's going to kill theaters.
Yeah.
I mean, they need that window, that large window, to be able
stay afloat.
to stay afloat. And AMC is already on its way out because of the coronavirus anyway. So they're scratching to stay alive. Yeah.
And so I think they are. They're right now they are taking a risk too of trying to at least stave off that emergency.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like
if Universal gets away with it, what other production companies are going to try to get away with it?
No doubt.
You know, they'll all jump
Well, I mean,
ship.
we already know Warner Brothers is planning with Scoob. But again, those are like the family films.
Yep.
So whether they branch out and we see more production companies and a wider array of films is yet to be seen.
Yeah.
it's all gonna. The devil's in the details, and
It's
we'll find out.
interesting. Like only time will.
We're
tell.
going to the theaters though.
Oh yeah, we'll
As soon
still
as our
be going.
Stubbs A-list starts working again,
I will go.
The moment they
going.
start charging me, I'm going.
I'm going.
Heck yeah.
yeah,
They ain't gonna keep
I ain't
me
wearing
out
a
of
mask either.
I'm coughing everywhere.
Guys, you darn
I'm
right.
gonna take my murder hornet. Keep
Release-
people away from
release
me.
the murder hornets
It's
in
like,
there.
I can just
You know what I'm gonna do?
see-
I'm gonna rub fish oil on everybody and let the tigers get them. That's what I'm gonna do.
You need sardine oil,
Sardine
not
oil.
perfume.
Freaking Carol Baskins.
I'm done with Joe Exotic. I'm done.
All
All right,
right.
just like we're done with headlines. All right, I guess it's time now for us to head into our unique weekly segment.
Multimedia.
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 I haven't heard.
Haven't you heard? Where's that come from again?
I have no idea.
I forgot. Oh, no, it's that.
The music is from Revenge of the Nerds.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
no,
I don't
no.
know what the
Yeah.
Haven't You Heard thing is.
That, it's the same song. It's
That was
just
Poindexter playing his electric violin.
It's the same song, just not what was used in the film.
yeah,
True.
It's the full release, I guess, after
True
the
dat.
film. All right, guys. So kind of keeping in touch. It's a little bit. This could be used honestly on any topic,
Oh.
but I particularly chose it for
I think it
multimedia.
must
This
have
would be
been
a
something
great
that was-
relationship segment.
I think it was something that just was at Brandon's heart.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Keith.
No,
Yeah,
I was just
sorry.
saying, I think it was just something that I guess Brandon was struggling with, was just not having enough technology.
I
Not
know.
having enough.
I know he got that freaking
Stimulus check.
package and
And then I
stimulated
I
everything.
got a bunch
in
of
here.
new toys, and
God.
I'm like,
He went on a buying spree and he's
I
like,
want more. I want more.
Jeez.
It's not enough.
Oh.
No,
One more's never enough.
it kind of got me thinking. I was just I bought some new trinkets, but even the littlest thing of like, you know, it's kind of that. To me, it could play in both ways. You know, it could be buyer's remorse, or it could be you're sitting there and you got what you wanted. I mean, I love. The thing is even when you know what you bought on Amazon, I love when a package is delivered.
Oh yeah,
It's just
addicting.
that feeling of when
It
you
is.
get it, you're
Yeah.
just like, man, this is great.
Yeah.
And opening
Nothing
the
like it.
box.
I got a
Yeah.
pooper scooper in the mail the other day, and,
Hey,
and
my
I was
pooper
just like,
scooper
man,
came."
that box looks big. I can't wait to open this. I open up. It's a plastic pooper scooper. It's what I ordered.
But you
But
know what?
I was excited as hell to open it though.
You're thrilled as hell. Exactly.
I don't like going out and using it, but
I got a package.
yeah.
But no, exactly. It's like anytime that package shows up. But it's like, are you addicted to the buying of it? I mean, this could
Now, to
be
be fair
we have
though,
to-
we had this set aside for tech.
yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
never is
Enough
it never
tech.
enough tech?
Yeah, because obviously it's multimedia, and,
Yeah.
and this could you all brought it to my attention. This could extend
vices
over a
as well.
vice.
Could be a vice.
It could be, but in particular, the reason why I thought multimedia is I was like, it just seems like they always. I mean, we've talked about it on the show before about
Yeah.
like buying the next iPhone. It's like
Yeah.
they always put something out where you're just like, I gotta have the latest and
Oh,
greatest.
yeah.
For the long, it's a weird thing because and it might have to do with having less income than I once had.
Yeah.
But when I had plenty of income, I was very much I want the latest everything.
Yeah.
And currently, though, I haven't really had that urge, and maybe it's just because I know I don't have the money to spend. But recently, like when I read about like new technology coming up, I'm like, oh, that sounds cool, but I don't want it, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's just the only thing. Like even like I mean, as much as like I do plan on buying like a PS5, even that I haven't been excited over. I'm like,
True.
I don't know. And maybe when it gets closer, or maybe when
think
my
that's what it
income,
is.
maybe when it gets closer, or maybe when my income picks up a bit,
True.
and I have money that I'm like, well, I could spend this.
Well, no doubt.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to tell you that absolutely, like having an expendable income helps because it's kind of one of those things where I definitely know. Yeah, when you're sitting there in your penny pension and you're kind of like, I don't have the, when something breaks,
Yeah.
you're just like,
Well, it's staying broken.
yeah, it's staying broken. I don't have
Yeah.
the money right now.
Yeah.
But then when you
But here's
when you
the
do have something, but well, I was
I was
gonna
gonna say it depends on what it is, because like I mean, you just like look at your AC. But I was gonna say the same thing. If something
I
broke
survived.
that I feel like I
well,
would
we survived. I should
Barely.
say we.
Barely.
But I would be in a similar boat. It's like, what do I need more, AC or that new Mac? It's like, well, probably AC, but I want to buy the Mac.
yeah. No, a lot of the times it does
Yeah.
end up that way.
Yeah.
Well, and not only that, but I think too that you get into a habit of like, okay, yeah, I don't need that right now,
Yeah.
but it would be nice to have it. And when you actually have the ability,
When you have the money,
To-
then
to
you're
get
like,
it-
when you have more money than sense, you're just like,
it's true. No, it is true. And
Should
it's
be
like
more dollars than cents.
yeah,
That's
more
what it is.
dollars than
more
cents.
dollars and cents. I mean, I'd be the first to admit that on my previous job, the one that made me miserable for so long, did pay well though, and I did buy a lot of things, but then I never got to enjoy them because I was never at
Never
home.
home,
I was-
yeah.
Now I'm at home catching up on all the things that I didn't get to enjoy. So maybe by the time we get to things I want and I have
Well, and I
money,
think
I'll
that's-
actually have finally burned through all the stuff that
I think
I
that's
never
a
got to
good
spend time
compromise
with.
because I think that's what it comes down to is it's like it never seems like enough until you really have
More
no
than-
other choice.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I thought about it the other day. I mean, even just it was like I finally stopped getting some newer things that I was really happy with, and I was glad to
Yeah.
spruce up our production value.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it was one of those situations where I was like, I haven't had a moment where I sat there and thoroughly enjoyed what it was that I purchased. And so it was kind of like once the spending and the getting stopped, it was kind of like, no, why don't I just breathe and actually enjoy?
Yeah.
I have a lot to be thankful for, and I'm blessed with so
Oh,
much.
yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, it really is when you start thinking, oh, no, I need to get that. Or, oh, no, now this is something I need. And it's like, it's endless.
Yeah.
It's never going to be enough.
Yeah.
And I think that
You're filling a void,
yeah,
bottomless
Yeah.
void.
it really does come down to that.
Yeah.
I think so. I
It was
think
like, even when you purchased the new camera and stuff, and I was like looking it up online and everything. I'm not going into like the price and stuff, but
Please don't.
you got
Nobody
you
needs to
got
know.
you got a deal on that one because a new one came out.
yeah.
4K went to 6K, and I'm just looking at the 6K one, and I'm kind of like, man,
Maybe
if
he
I
wants
had
that,
the
yeah.
other $700, I would have just got that one.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know, but
yeah.
it's just
But
like
that's $700
I know,
more.
I know exactly. But it's like if I had it,
would.
would I buy that camera and have nothing to
Oh,
put on it,
I have
or
no
would I
doubt.
buy the cheaper camera and a lens
I've done
and
the
have
same.
something to put on it? But there's times when it's just kind of like I'd rather have the very best you can get right
Yes.
now,
Yes.
and maybe nothing else.
Well, and that's what
And
that's always
that's
the trick.
yeah.
Because it's always obsolete the moment it shows up on your
yeah,
door.
absolutely.
And it's like, but it's kind of that envy of the latest and greatest. And I'm already holding out anyway to try to save up and get something. expensive. But it's like, I mean, I had an argument once before with someone about how I was like, well, I just want something that is a good film-like camera that shoots 4K. And, you know, I didn't want a GH5. I didn't want something that was like, you know, photography focused, but was for like YouTube enthusiasts. But even with buying, you know, the 4K camera I got, my first thought was, you know, well, some people would have stopped and said, no, I'm not going to spend money on that. I'm going to save up another 20, 30 grand and buy a Red.
And
And
on
I'm
the
like,
opposite
how in the
side,
hell?
I would say on the
No
opposite side,
way.
some people are listening to you talk about buying 4K cameras, thinking, well,
I need a
heck,
4K
I got one in
camera.
my pocket.
No,
Yeah.
no. They're thinking it's like I'm just happy with whatever little bitty rinky dink
Yeah.
because that's all they get. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Some people are
Yeah.
just satisfied
With what? Yeah.
I mean, my parents, like, there's so many times, like, I mean, I mentioned them a lot, but I mean,
Yeah.
when you talk about technology, it's hard not to because
Oh yeah, you always go to your parents.
Yeah.
But like they'll watch, like we've talked before, they'll watch something on TV that'll be stretched out and
Awful.
in a terrible
Awful.
resolution. I'm like,
So
why don't
bad.
you adjust the settings and fix that? Well, I don't see anything wrong with it. It's like, how do you?
How
and
do
they
you
honestly,
not?
it's like,
Yeah.
it looks normal to me. It's like his head is like 2 feet wide. It's like that's not. I hate that.
It's like, no. On your TV, Melissa McCarthy's thin. There's something wrong with that TV.
Watching her in 4x3.
Yes.
It's like it's wrong, and they'll be like,
Yeah.
why is it wrong?
Why is it right?
Yeah.
It's not. I enjoy it just fine
Yeah,
the
they
way it
just
looks.
They don't see it.
But and it is. It's like obviously personal tastes vary in large degrees, and obviously anybody who has a hobby or a passion
Yeah.
is going to be either willing to spend more of their, you know, whatever little extra income they have on
Some
that.
people
on
wish they
that.
had enough money to buy a 4K camera.
Yeah.
True, but and again, and I wouldn't argue with somebody who went out and bought like the same amount of money in horticulture stuff. But I'm not. I
Yeah.
don't like that. That doesn't. I don't give a crap. It's like some people buy like the best vacuums and the best irons, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to
Yeah.
spend hundreds of dollars on those items when I'm just like,
Yeah, I can tell you,
You know.
don't waste your money on a Dyson.
don't see, don't
I've
get
went
it.
through 2 of them in their junk.
and
Just don't get
they're
one.
super expensive, aren't
They're
they?
super expensive.
So
Yeah.
it's like it is
not worth
definitely
it.
personal preference and taste plays
Yes,
a large part into
absolutely.
it. But the factor is that it doesn't matter what you buy, it will never be enough.
That's right.
It really isn't. I mean, I love buying new things. I love getting new toys, and I love when that package shows up. But the fact is, it is all stuff,
That's just that commercialism.
and
It's
it
gotten
is.
to you.
It's like you can't let that be what drives you. You can't let it get to you. It'll
Yep.
never be enough. All right, guys.
fun show.
That was
fun
a
show.
good. That was
Yeah.
a good little segment. All right, I think we're gonna wrap it up there. Does anybody else have anything to talk
What's
about?
the movie we're going to show this week?
Oh yeah, let's not
forgot
forget
we
that.
haven't
We still have
mentioned.
our quarantine drive-in.
Thursday
We-
nights at 7
we
or
made-
8.
Eight.
Sorry, whoops, I screwed that
You
up.
mi-
almost.
we missed a week of Brandon forget. The funny thing is the quarantine drive-in still aired last week.
Yeah,
but you
Star
still
is
don't
Born
remember.
was
Yeah.
on.
Fantastic movie.
Yeah, we got a lot of responses, a lot of positive ones who like that. I didn't even know till my sister commented
Oh, that was your
my
grandmother's
grandma's
yeah.
favorite film. I didn't know that.
Wow.
So that
Now
was
you know.
cool
Cool.
to know. But yeah, we got a quarantine drive-in this Thursday, 8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
You can watch it on Red Moon's podcast, not podcast, our YouTube or Facebook page.
Right.
And you just go there or just search for Red Moon Productions. It'll pop up.
You're just full of misinformation
I
today.
am. I'm telling all the lies.
He's
It's-
gotten out of the routine.
I got to get back into it.
I know it.
But no, we're going to be showing a house on Haunted Hill.
House
House
haunted,
on the
Oh,
Haunted
whoops.
Hill, isn't it?
Sorry.
just house on haunted hill.
Oh,
Okay.
dang. We all got it wrong, except for Keith.
Yeah.
Misinformation.
Vincent
Jeez.
Price,
Yes.
one of his classics. I mean, he's definitely known for many horror movies, but that is one of his most well-known ones.
Right.
So
There's been
it's-
remakes.
There's
but
been
this,
remakes,
yeah,
but
Right.
this is the
So,
the,
but
the
House-
original was actually good.
Yeah.
I've seen the remake.
Yeah. So, but
trash.
House on Haunted Hill,
Yeah.
Mhm.
we're going to be showing that this week, 8 o'clock again,
Thursday night.
Thursday night. You can watch it there, watch it here, where you're watching this right now.
Right.
Facebook or YouTube.
Yep.
Just
If you've
search for Red Moon
if you've
Productions.
subscribed and hit the bell and all that stuff,
You'll get a
You'll
notification.
get a notification that we're live and showing a film, and you just pop the popcorn and grab your sweetheart and sit on the couch.
And enjoy.
If you don't have one, sorry.
You know, it's okay. Don't worry. Your dog will love you too.
That's right.
Yeah.
You can just
That's
sit
right.
there.
Cuddle.
If you don't have
Yeah.
one, I'm sorry.
Yeah. You need a dog, don't you?
We
Everybody.
need to get you a lizard.
Maybe.
I think you look like a lizard guy.
I think I look like I'm gonna
A
buy
parakeet.
I'm gonna
That'd be
buy
great.
whatever I want, and I'll just.
That's true. Hey, when the
You
next
know-
stimulus package comes, I want to see what
I think he needs a ferret. That's what he needs.
he needs. A
He
marmot.
needs a ferret.
I just think of
That'd be
Kindergarten
hilarious.
Cop. I just think a kindergarten cop with a ferret.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because that's what he had.
Yeah.
That was like their classroom pet. Didn't everybody have a? I don't want to get out of that topic.
Yeah, I don't
It's
know.
like classroom
That's
pets. you
story
know?
time.
I
We'll
just-
get we'll
that's
save that
next
for
week.
later.
That's next
Only
week.
thing I remember
You
about
know?
that movie is the truth about gender.
Boys have a penis and girls have a vagina.
That there's only two. Yeah.
That and it's not a tumor.
It's not a tumor.
It's not a tumor.
It's not
That's
a
true.
tumor. I don't know. I don't know if that beats. I don't know if that
It
beats.
doesn't sound right if you don't say it like him.
Well, I don't know if it beats put the cookie down. That's still my favorite. That's my favorite.
All right,
Okay.
guys. So other than Quarantine Drive-In, you can always, right there at the bottom of your screen, email us, rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com. So until next time, I think that's going to do it for us.
Pow!
Is he saying pow?
Pow!
Pow! Pow! Catalina wine mixer.
Don't know. That was out of left field, but it's great.
I know. I don't know where it came from. Just like in that movie, I don't know where it comes from. But
I
still,
die laughing when he does.
I
it.
know.
Why is he doing that?
All right, guys, that's it. Until next time, I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
And
Keith Cheatham.
so until next time, we will see you at the
drive-in.
drive-in. Oh, we got it, barely.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.